Hello, this is Dr. Mowlavi coming to you from Ask Dr. Mowlavi at cpsi.com. Today's question comes from Texas, Austin, Texas, from Mark, who wants to know how he can make sure that his wife of 10 years gets a Safe BBL. Today's topic is on Safe BBLs. I would like to say SCUBA. So SCUBA is an eponym that we've created and coined. It stands for Safe California Ultrasound Assisted Buttock Augmentation. And why is this such a concern? So let's back up a little bit and talk to the audience about what the problem is. And unfortunately, there is a complication of BBLs, or the Brazilian butt lift, which entails taking fat from your body and transferring it into your buttock region. It's a beautiful thing. It allows us to optimize your body contour. The differentiation between a narrowed waistline and a beautifully created, generous buttock, both in shape and size, is something to be proud of. And it's a beautiful thing. And it's probably the most popular procedure that we have, or the fastest growing following breast augmentation. Now, what is the problem here? The problem is, unfortunately, we've been dealing with a detrimental side effect called fat emboli. Fat emboli is a process in which the fat inadvertently, while trying to fill up the buttock area, gets into a particular vein called the superior gluteal vein. And if the fat gets into that area, or gets into that vein in particular, the vein then will siphon it up to the heart and the lungs, and you can actually die from it. Yes, you heard it right. You can die from it. And so this is a major concern. Several dozen patients around the world die from this complication, and it's become an issue to the point where the FDA is potentially considering banning all BBLs throughout the states. Well, as I am a trainer of other surgeons across the country, I felt obligated to figure it out for you all. And so we've gone through a lot of permutations and surgical design, alterations and modifications in an attempt to try to avoid fat emboli. So let me give you a quick background on the pathophysiology of what we're talking about. When we add fat to the butt, we're basically adding it to gain volume. So you can think of where we could add it. Well, we could add it to all the soft tissues. These include underneath the skin, in the fat, and even in the muscle, and even under the muscle. This particular vein that is prone to getting fat into it lives under the muscle. And so after much investigation work and task forces created by our society, the ASPS, we think we've identified the pathophysiology involved. It's actually not that your surgeon is piercing through that vein and getting the fat injected into the vein. What we now understand is that if any of the fat is put into the muscle of the butt, which is the gluteus maximus muscle that we're talking about, or even under the muscle, what happens with large volume fat transfer, so the gals that want the really big butts, what's happening is that the tension and the pressure that is created on the buttock cheek itself inflames the butt to the point where it pulls on the gluteus maximus muscle. And when you pull on that muscle, underneath the muscle, there's a loose areolar plane. It's actually free. This is a similar plane as in breast augmentation. I don't know if you all even know this, but underneath the pectoralis muscle in the chest where we do breast augmentation, underneath that muscle is loose. And that's what allows us to so easily get the implant in there. Well, the same concept exists in the butt. The plane underneath the gluteus maximus is loose. And so the current thinking process is that when you get a large enough butt that swells up, it'll literally pull on the gluteus maximus muscle, and that pull or stretch on the muscle will actually tether the gluteal vein and tear it. It actually tears on its own because of the tension placed on that muscle, because of the inflammation. Now, what happens is if you have any fat material underneath that muscle or in the muscle, it can literally get sucked into that vein. There's a concept in physics or biophysics. I was a biophysics major at school. So there's a concept called Benelli Effect. The Benelli effect describes how higher velocity of any medium will create a negative pressure. It's the same analogy as if you stand by a train going by you, the train, because of the velocity of the air, can actually suck you into the train. So you should never stand next to a train. We are talking about the same concept here, everybody. You should never put any fat near that vein because it'll get sucked right in. So it's a siphoning effect rather than a penetration by your surgeon effect. So don't blame your surgeon. Just kidding. So now, let's talk about this. Now we understand that it's a siphoning effect of the fat into the vein that creates these detrimental effects. So the question is, how do we avoid it? And that's how we came up with SCUBA, which stands for Safe California Ultrasound-Assisted Buttock Augmentation, SCUBA. It's a cute little eponym that we've created, and it's caught on, and it's picking up in popularity. But this is what we're talking about, you guys. So the bottom line is as surgeons, we are not allowed to put any more fat in the muscle or underneath the muscle. The reason why the muscle is such a barrier is because the muscle has a lining. If you've ever looked at your meat when you buy, there's a muscle lining, and it's pretty tough. So if you don't penetrate the muscle and only inject the fat in the fat layer and underneath the skin, the fat cannot get into the muscle. Now, you might ask, well, doesn't the underneath layer of the gluteus maximus also have a lining that would prevent muscle injections from getting the fat into under the muscle? And the answer is no. The lining in the gluteus maximus only exists on the superficial surface, and the lining on the underneath surface is negligible and often not there. So there you have it. The dilemma became that we are not allowed to inject fat into the muscle anymore. And as long as providers, we can limit the fat injection into the subcutaneous or the fat layer, we're safe and we don't have to worry about fat emboli. The question became, well, how do we know that? Because we're sticking a rod to inject the fat back in. How do you know if you're in the muscle or in the fat? And this is the big research endeavor of many companies out there. While we're trying to figure it out, yours truly thought that, well, maybe we could use ultrasound-assisted fat injection. And using the traditional cannulas, and we'll put a picture of this for you up so you can see what I'm talking about, I was able to modify, and we're currently trying to patent this cannula, so that it would light up under ultrasound. So what we do is we use a portable ultrasound, and I'll put a picture of this up for you all later. And literally, using my fat injection cannula, when I penetrate inside the skin on the buttock cheek area, I can see my cannula glow in the dark. Not only do I see my cannula, but ultrasound also allows us to look at the soft tissues. So we can see where the muscle is, we can see where the fat is, and we can see where our cannula is. So here you have it, SCUBA, Safe California Ultrasound-Assisted Buttock Augmentation. Using the Mowlavi fat grafting cannula allows us to inject the fat only in the fat layer, thus really eliminating the risk of fat emboli. I hope that answers your question, Mark, and I wish you well with your wife. And I want to encourage everybody to send more questions to Ask Dr. Mowlavi, no period there, Ask Dr. Mowlavi at cpsi360.com. Thank you very much.